I believe in not just, a really great resume or a really great application or a really great interview. I believe in becoming the right person for that next role. Becoming the right person for that next role.
If you could start a meaningful revolution in the world right now, or you're living one right now, what would you call it? What are the components of it? And could you tell us all a little bit about what that means for you?
I would say the meaningful revolution would be called the true you revolution. When you're in a really tense situation, and it's typically a situation where you would say something to someone you wish you hadn't said, or you'd kind of fly off the handle, or you'd get super tense. If you found yourself being able to stop yourself and you didn't say that thing, or pause and go, you know what, I don't need to get so wound up about this, you probably just touched your true self, because that's your wiser voice saying, you know what, don't say that thing. Not a good moment for that.
Hey everyone, welcome to the Meaningful Revolution podcast, the podcast where we hope to inspire you to live into what you find fulfilling and meaningful in your life. And I'm your host, Sean Butler, certified high performance coach. And today's guest is an established leader in the fields of both professional and personal development. With more than 20 years of experience helping people and companies become more effective and reach their personal, professional, and strategic and relationship goals, she brings an unmatched depth of expertise that combines her with her authentic approach and dynamic delivery to equip people with the tools that they need. So as a result of her speaking, workshops, coaching, or virtual work, people and teams are ready to take on their next steps, plus maintain the necessary momentum to achieve and exceed their targets. And she has expertise helping Fortune 500 companies across the globe grow, including Asia, Europe, and the Middle East, Africa, North, all the continents. Working with companies like Yahoo, Microsoft, Cisco, Bloomberg, Pfizer, Goldman Sachs, KKR, JP Morgan, Tiffany, and so much more. It is my distinct pleasure to welcome my friend, Mim Abbey, to the podcast. Mim, welcome.
Thank you, Sean. Such a pleasure to be with you today.
Right on. So today's topic, we're going to be talking about, how to get promoted, essentially, but it's part of your larger Soul of Success brand. So I've been asking this new question to start off the podcast. If you could start a meaningful revolution in the world right now, or you're living one right now, what would you call it? What are the components of it? And could you tell us all a little bit about what that means for you?
Gosh, what a great question, Sean. We certainly are in a world where we need some meaningful revolutions that advance us personally, that advance our world. So yeah, I'd love to jump on that wagon. And what comes to mind for me first, the thing that has been driving me for the last several years now as my career has unfolded, and it's taken twists and turns as many people's do, but it comes out of a conversation I had with a client some years ago. And I'll cut to the chase and say, I would say the meaningful revolution would be called the true you revolution. And the strong statement I would make about that, and then I'll tell you that quick story, is that in my observation and in my experience, you've heard I do this work all over the world, so in a lot of different countries and a lot of different individuals and groups, large companies, and of course, what I really care about is down at that individual level, us as people. What I've observed is that we get triggered as human beings all the time. Stuff pushes us out of our comfort zone. That's a good thing. But it also brings up these triggers, and people will argue, people will disagree. Stuff just comes up that can make us crazy. And what happens is, unbidden, without our realizing it, we downshift typically from this part of our brain that is logical and makes good decisions. And we downshift from that part of our brain down to the part of the brain that just, we go into fight mode. We go into, fight or flight mode. And that's a survival instinct. So it's not bad. It's good to have survival instincts. It's just that we tend to take our survival instincts to our important relationships. We tend to take our survival instincts to our important projects and pursuits. And it's just, again, survival is an important thing, but when you're having to make delicate decisions about projects and about a direction to take and about a sensitive conversation with someone who's important to you in your personal life or in your professional life, if you just bring your survival instincts to those situations, it causes trouble. And so really when we downshift away from what I'm going to call in many ways the true self, the true you, the part of you that's wise, the part of you that's can take a step back and is more objective, the part of you that it's like that deeper knowing part of you. And there's more to it. There's certain parts of the brain that are associated with it. But all that to say, if we could, as individuals, and then larger just as people on planet Earth, if we could all spend more time making decisions and interacting with situations and with people from our true self and not what I call the starter self, the more reactive self, it'd be a better world. We'd be happier people. We'd be healthier people. And it came out of, Sean, if I may, it came out of a conversation with a client. And I was coaching this team on, here's how you deal with someone who's being very reactive with you. And here's how you help them to, without them knowing, you're not patronizing them, but here's how you help them to move out of that reactive place so that the two of you can really have a good productive discussion. And this gentleman said, okay, this is great. This is it is a powerful process. It's a powerful process for how to communicate with someone who's in that reactive brain. But he said, like, what do I do with myself? Because I get triggered. So I'm in my I'm in that brain. So how do I deal with myself? And it's a really good question. And so I developed a body of material around that for how do we just be our truest, best selves most of the time, as opposed to just a little bit of the time, which so many of us are. This is a long answer to your question.
So totally. And I love the true you revolution as high performance coaches, we're always trying to get people to be in their best selves.
Yeah.
Excuse me. And, operating in that mode really is about that lifestyle of living with joy, a sense of relaxation, a sense of vibrancy in life, which is so powerful.
Yeah.
So, I love it. And your story on how it got kicked off that conversation was pretty, awesome too. But I'm curious now, if you could tell us a time maybe when you were in your starter self, and then you figured your way that, there has to be a better way, and maybe finding your true self, maybe in an earlier moment when that wasn't as accessible to you, or maybe it was always, and that's your superpower. However that goes for you, but. How does that resonate?
Yeah. Great. Thank you so much for asking that. It's so true. I mean, the reason this is such a passion for me is I've lived so much of my life in reactive mode and in, I'm going to say, stress mode and in even fear mode. I mean, I'm a professional speaker and I've been a professional speaker for many, many years and, coaching people. And I earlier in my career, I was aware how incredibly stressed I would get anytime I spoke in front of a group of people. And I spoke in front of a group of people several times a week. I mean, this is my job. And I remember being aware then, wow, this is a really good job for me because it's forcing me, it's pushing me to learn to do this. But what I will say is that that was the hard way. I mean, just forcing myself. And I really do believe in the more we put ourselves out there, we build our confidence, we build our competence. So that's all good stuff. It's just, if I had the tools earlier to, in the moment, if you're feeling like, ooh, like here's what I'll get around to answering your question. Like what I'll do now is I'll really be aware. I'll go, wow, I'm about to be in this high pressure situation, and I can feel in my body that I'm feeling small, I'm feeling scared, I'm feeling like, I don't know that I'm up to this. And because I've used the tools over and over and over again, it's just like, take a deep breath and ask myself, who am I being right now? Am I being my starter self, or am I being my true self? And I really do mean the true self. It's like, I believe it's always been there. It's just been waiting
Mm-hmm.
for when I was ready. For yours is was waiting for when you're ready. But I'm able to quickly access it now. So I would say when I started to become aware of
Mm-hmm.
that there was another option, I developed a little process for myself. And the process starts, and I've developed it into something I work with clients. But the very first step in the process is stop. Is stop.
Mm-hmm.
Because what's happening, is you're on a track, and there's a lot of self-talk that is associated with it. So in that situation, the track might be, oh, I've got this high pressure presentation to give, and am I going to
Mm-hmm.
be able to hold it together in a maybe stressful relationship situation? The self-talk actually might be directed at the other person. She's so selfish, or he you know
Mm-hmm.
he doesn't know what he's talking about, or like the judgments will start flying. So whether the judgments are to myself, whether the judgments are to other people. So earlier on, when I started to become aware, hey, there's another me that can handle this a whole lot better than I can. It was really a matter of start, like, that first is just like, stop that thought train. And it's really helpful. You stop and you take a deep breath, and you're able to
Mm-hmm.
look and go, oh, look at where I was going. And when you can get that little bit of a space, a little bit of a distance to look at yourself and go, you kind of step outside yourself. It's like that wiser self really kicks in. That true self just kicks in and says, oh, look, I'm going down that track. I'm getting caught on that track. And sometimes that is all you need. You go, oh, and I have another option available to me. So just at least with that stop, breathing as part of that, and then the next thing would be just observing yourself, observing your reactivity, observing how you're triggered.
Mm-hmm. Right
Yeah.
on. Yeah, it's so simple. Stop, breathe, observe. You know,
Right.
it's basically I feel like so much personal development is based around content you could boil down into stop, breathe, observe.
Isn't it?
Um,
So well said, Sean. Yeah, it's true. And in the Soul of Success, in our content, one thing that we do all the time is called soul practice. Soul
mm,
practice, and it has to do with getting you back in that right brain, in the correct, not the right versus left brain, but your best brain. That really is the seat of your true self, and that helps you to be making decisions you want to make, and interacting and behaving, and just experiencing life in the most productive way. So a
right
lot of
on.
soul practice. Yeah.
Yep,
Yeah.
absolutely. Um, yeah, so I'm curious, as you know, we were talking a little bit before the call about you had your Soul of Success. You have a new thing that we'll talk about soon, you know, to kind of tease it for the audience right now. Um, and we talked about starting out the True You Revolution.
Yeah.
And I absolutely love. Knowing you for a while, I can kind of see how all this is connected.
Mm.
I'm curious. So you're talking about how you love to help people get promoted. Can you share like maybe a little bit more about? I'm guessing your work experience had a little bit to do with that. Like, how did you stumble into that part of this work? Um, Maybe you didn't stumble. It's probably with a lot more intention. You know, words do matter. But could you explain maybe your journey? I guess getting to here and now helping individuals with their getting promoted at work or leveling up their career.
Yeah. Oh no, it's great. And Sean, by the way, stumbling, I really, I look back at my career and go, wow, I really stumbled into this, into this, into this. And I do believe that we take action on things that matter to us, and we learn things and doors open. We learn things and doors open. We learn things and doors
Mhm.
open. And that's how, so I do feel like there is some really kind of, I would say, blessed stumbling that happens along the way. Yeah, a couple things happened for me. So I've been, yeah, I mean, honestly, it's been like 30 years doing what I do, but and it's grown and changed, but in essence, I mean, I really started my career in the corporate world, in a learning
Mhm.
and development capacity, and helping people to be more effective and more successful in their roles. And that entail I was in the computer industry, and I ran an internal university, so I managed that internal university. And there were technical programs that people would go through. There were communication and leadership and management programs. I
Mhm.
would teach those programs. So I really come out of the corporate sphere, and a couple of things happened with me along the way. Number one, I'll just say, with the Soul of Success brand was grown out of that experience, because I did I did my corporate experience like flat out. Like I didn't take lunch. I just
Mhm.
worked and worked and worked, and because my parents taught me it's like strong work ethic, so, which is a good thing. But ultimately, I can totally burn myself out. It was just,
Mhm.
I didn't do it the smart way. And so Soul of Success was born out of, you definitely you want to go to the heights, the highest heights you can go professionally, and you also want to have a great time personally doing it. So that's where the Soul of Success mountain was born. It's the 3-level
Mhm.
mountain, and there's the life areas of thriving, and then on top of that is the relationship areas of connecting, and at the top is the professional area of achieving, and has to do with purpose and meaningful purpose, etc. So
Mhm.
there's the path that goes up the mountain with all the success principles, etc. So that came out of me just like working like a crazy person, and needing to and like my body started breaking down all sorts of, it's like, okay,
Mhm.
that's way too many aches and pains going on. This is not just my feet and just my jaw and just my hands. It's like something systemic, and the systemic thing was
Mhm.
just my inner approach. So that was going on, and that's how Soul of Success was born. And love helping people with their whole life, professional and personal success. Then,
Mhm.
as part of that, there I am in these. So now you've asked me about the Career Accelerator, which is
Well,
a yeah.
before you go, I had maybe an interesting connection here for this part of the story. So,
Yeah.
we talked about living your true evolution. You talk about
Mm,
being taught to be a hard worker, and I think I identify like that was my parents growing up. Is you work hard, you give it
yeah.
everything 100%,
Yeah.
and then you ended up burning out because of that process. So if you're trying to live your authentic self, and your
Mm,
authentic self, so here's the question:
mm,
was your authentic self the workaholic, burn the candle at both ends person, or was that the
mm.
starter self that hadn't realized there was a higher way of doing things?
Yeah, yeah, you're right on, and it is the starter self. So the way I define the starter self is, the starter self, y- you gotta love your starter self, and I mean it,
Mhm.
like
Yeah.
love and respect and gratitude and appreciation, because your starter self came into the world and said, "Oh, okay, uh, so like for me, I'm the youngest of four, so I came in and there was already a whole set, like things were already set. The family had this is the way we do things, etc. So I kind of got that pretty I had my own ideas, but I kind of got, it's kind of got hammered into me. It's like, no, this is the way the Abbey family
Mhm.
does things. So I like learning those things. And so that wasn't necessarily my true self, but my starter self went, well, if I'm going to survive in this family, I'm going to learn to do it that way, because that's what's acceptable
Mhm.
and approved of, etc. So it's just things like that. Like, you just learn. The starter self is the one that's scrappy and figures
Mhm.
out how to stay alive through your aughts and through your teens, etc. And it's just, the issue is, if for most, I am gonna say most people, because we don't think about this, you're in your third job and you still are operating from your starter self, which will tend to be reactive and adaptive and not deeply in touch with just with the truest, and I'm going to say wisest. I'm not talking about selfishness. I'm talking about everyone's got their inner wisdom. We really do. We have that higher voice, and are we listening to it? So that's that I got to do it this way. I mean, I was really taught by my parents: pick yourself up by your bootstraps, stiff upper lip. Sounds like you were too, Sean. So
Yeah.
you know what that's like. And it's like that wiser self knows I can still achieve a lot professionally. Like I can go to the heights, and I can also have a life, and I can also do it in a way that is sustainable and takes care of myself. And I was not, bless my parents. They weren't taught to, they came out of Depression era families, and so they weren't taught to take good care of themselves. They were taught just really survival. So
Yeah.
yes. Yeah.
But that's awesome, and I hope. I always forget to tell people to grab some notes to take notes. I have a page notes here.
Oh.
And I brought that question up because I feel sometimes we trick ourselves into thinking we're being authentic when we're hurting ourselves. It's kind of, I know I've had that in my career, where I would not, anytime anyone asked me to do anything, I'd say yes, and then I'm stressed out because I never got any of my projects done. I feel like I'm not enough. I feel like I'm not keeping up. I'm not getting ahead of things.
Yeah.
And so it's really tricky to know when you're operating from that elevated version. So I just wanted to make that point. And you so eloquently shared that, and I think the key word is sustainable, right? You're not really going to be able to work at as hard as you possibly can if you can't get out of bed because you destroyed your body, or you're miserable because you don't have anyone to talk to because nobody knows you're around because you're working so much. And it's really two heavy hitting things that I see in my coaching practice. But I wanted to just call that out. So
it's really good. And Sean, by the way, I totally relate to that. Just like doing everything for, because you want to be a kind and generous person. I mean, that's part of your, personal ethic. It's just, and so I didn't have my starter self was like, oh, you just got to say yes to everything. And so it's like, oh, have you ever read, Boundaries? Codependent no more. Anyway, but the higher self and the wise self knows, you know what, you got to say no to this so that you can keep saying a larger yes to those who ultimately depend on you, personal or professional life. So yeah, it's doing some of those tough things.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So okay, so you did the soul success in response to this phase of burnout and really pushing hard and reevaluating and elevating. So take us forward from this part of your story.
Oh yeah, this work that I do in organizations, in inside of companies, it is truly, I mean, there's a reason why I keep coming back and I keep doing it, and I keep, I went from communication and leadership, coaching, and branched out then into sales and business development, and I still do, of course, the leadership piece. But the thing that they all have in common is they help people grow in their careers. They help people get to the next level. And I looked around, because I've worked in big companies, you named some of them, that have these extensive programs and some of them are better than others, that teach people some important things that are going to help them grow in their careers. But a lot of companies don't. A lot of companies don't have that, or the stuff that they do have internally, the training and the growth opportunities. I mean, I've gotten earfuls and earfuls and earfuls from clients saying, "Wow, most of the stuff that's offered in house, it's not helping me to get to the next level." So I realized, there I am. I'm working all over the world. I'm working with leaders. I'm seeing what got leaders promoted, and I'm seeing the thing. I'm behind these closed doors where they're talking about what are these promotable qualities and what aren't, and somehow there's a disconnect. I mean, I've had employees say to me, well, I want to get promoted, my boss is going to help me, right? Sometimes yes, sometimes no. Anyway, all that to say, what I never found was a really comprehensive set, and a really good, like a right on set of, here's the tools, here's the skills, here's the qualities, here's the process to get you that next level, get you that substantial raise, or get you that promotion. And so I saw that as something that was missing. And I really have a heart. I do have a my I love my work with organizations, but my heart is really with the person, with the individual. And so I decided I know the process because I see how it's working for the leaders who are getting promoted. So I created this process, and I thought, I want to take this to people who might not get it. They're not going to get it inside their company for whatever reason. Either there's not that level of training, or the training isn't great. And that happens, or the boss isn't helping them for whatever reason. And so so I put together. So I got the process that I've seen work, and I am so excited about. And I put it together in a program. It's called the Career Accelerator, and it's a coaching program that I personally walk people through, and so it is tailored, it is customized to each individual, but it's a lot. I mean, if you're and for, if you know people, Sean, who are serious about getting that promotion and they're ready to put in the work and work with me, I don't bite. So
Right
I
on.
love helping people be successful, and I've stubbed my toe, and I've made the errors and the mistakes, and my most embarrassing moments, and all of that. I've totally been there. And so I've seen it all, and I've done it all, probably. So
Right
that's what
on.
that program is. Yeah, and you're going to love this. The process is actually called the RAISE process, and it's an acronym, but it just sort of appeared because these are the steps that you got to take in order to get a promotion. And the other thing I'd say is, it's just, if I may, just, Sean, I'd see, like, people would try to get a promotion, and they would do it by, like, okay, I'm just gonna I'm gonna work the resume, or I'm gonna in a big company, maybe I'm gonna post for this job. There's job posting, so I'm gonna post for this job. And it's like, those are great, and those have to be done. They're just tactics. And so at the Career Accelerator, we go a lot deeper than tactics, so that you just don't leave any stone unturned in making sure that you're the one. You're the one.
Right on.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I guess the first question that pops in my head, in your extensive experience, what types of things generally cause people to stumble when they're going for that new position, or that next position, or that level up? Because I'm thinking about the advice I was given in my career in tech. Um, I had some good advice, but I'm curious, like, where do people stumble or struggle, or just don't know what they don't know?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Really good. There's a variety of areas, which is why the program covers all these areas. Like, one,
Mm-hmm.
I would say, is, there's this thing going around right now, Sean, where there's a lot I've seen on social, and I've seen out there, which is about, just sort of do your job, and
Mm-hmm.
don't do any more. And it's, don't be used by your company. Just do your job, and go that extra mile, because then they're just, they're getting all this good stuff out of you, and you're not being rewarded for it. And I would say that's, you want to run away from that, folks. You want to, I would say to your audience, Sean, you want to go that opposite direction. You want to set yourself apart. You want to it's again getting down to the human level. If we don't bring, and I'm not talking about getting walked all over. A big
Mm-hmm.
part of that we talk about in the program is confidence, and bringing your bravery, your boldness, and your confidence to the process. So you don't want to get stepped on, and yet you want to bring it. Really, again, it has to do with your ethic. You want to bring this I'm going to say, personal generosity to the you want to lead with generosity, and in general the energy you bring to things, I really believe the energy you bring to things comes back to you. So if you bring I'm just going to do what's required and nothing else until they make a move to give me more or something, it's going to be a while till they make the move to give you more. So you really want to distinguish yourself with your generosity of how could you go the extra mile. So one of the things that we talk about, I've got this little innovation incubator built into the program, where are you somebody who is looking out for ways that whether it's just taking initiative to be helpful, or even creating innovations that are going to, it's above and beyond what you're doing, but sometimes it doesn't take very long to just look under the surface and find something that, here's something that I could make a case for, and a way that we could streamline processes. We could make the department runs more smoothly and make my boss's life easier. So that's one I would say. Don't get caught up, everyone, in this sort of fad right now of just do what's required and don't do anything more until they promise they're going to give you something more. Say you take that first step of generosity.
Right.
So that's one. Yeah.
Yeah, I think they call it quiet quitting, right? Isn't that
They
the term
call it
is?
quiet quitting. It's just terrible. Yeah,
Right,
it is
yeah.
this thing. Yeah, it is this thing right now, and obviously you're familiar with it too, Sean. So I would say, be that person. And one I work within, one of the groups I consult with is an accounting group, a financial analyst and accounting group within a major company, and these employees, they're just a couple or 3 years in, and they come maybe from these public accounting firms, and maybe there's this sort of, you've been here for 2 years and you automatically get a promotion. There's this automatic expectation, and it's just, for most companies, it's not that way. It really is merit based. And so you want to distinguish. It's not, I've been here this amount of time, so I get the big raise, or so I get the promotion. It's, hey, you, and I have leaders in this company say, please help the teams understand this, that it's up to them. They gotta step up. And it's, what, that's exciting. I mean, what it comes down to, Sean, I really believe this, that as people grow in their careers, it's about the money, because this is a weird time for our economy, and you've got to be making more money for yourself and for your family, because otherwise you're going backwards, because prices are so high. So it is, in a sense, about the money. The status, that's a good thing. I mean, you've earned this thing, but really, ultimately, and I'm so deeply believe this, is as you go on the journey to get to that next level, the journey you go through, at least that we go through with the Career Accelerator, you actually become a better person. And that's the most important thing. It's like the money and the status and all that stuff, it's like the icing on the cake. Your life gets better, not just because of the paycheck and not just because of the new title. Your life gets better because, guess what? You got better in the process. It's actually quite exciting. So that's another ad, I'd say, that I really believe in. Growth is about it's not just the external stuff is the icing on the cake.
Definitely. On those lines of beliefs and mindsets, is there a belief that you have that other people in a similar position, or that help people advance in their career, so that maybe other career coaches, or I'm not sure what the right, I always hate giving people buckets, but I'm just trying to find a point of reference. But your peers, what kind of mindset or belief do you have that others don't?
Oh, wow. You know what? I would, I would link that to that last bit we just talked about really what you get out of the process, because in the raise process and in the Career Accelerator, we are going to work on your resume. We're going to work on your LinkedIn. We're going to work on your interview skills. Like, all that is within there. But those are kind of the tactics that lay on top of what I really believe is it's not about the tactics, it's about the strategy. And the strategy that I have people, and we do it pretty quickly, it's a 90-day process.
Mm-hmm.
So what I'm about, I say that just because what I'm about to say, I don't want people to feel like, oh my gosh, that's going to take forever. It doesn't take forever. It's a matter of if you're motivated to adopt certain things. And this is the thing that I believe does set it apart. I believe in not just, a really great resume or a really great application or a really great interview. I believe in becoming the right person for that next role. Becoming the right person for that next role. So it really, I mean, we baked into this is why we baked into the program all these things that I've coached people to, and then I've also seen people get promoted from. And it has to do with that, crafting that innovation. It has to do with how they're showing up in meetings. I know people who are showing up in meetings and they're scared because it's with their boss's boss's boss. I mean, it's with some pretty major heavy hitters, and it's like I'm going to open my mouth and make a fool of myself here. So there's how to speak up in compelling ways in high level meetings like that, and like how to make a case for something. It's how to deal with pushback and resistance. It's how to deal with tough. What about if your boss isn't a big fan of yours? How do you still
Mm-hmm.
go around that and get, so it's really in depth. That's what I say, it's comprehensive. And what happens is you adopt these things, you start practicing these things. It doesn't take long. You're actually, we talk about your reputation quite a bit in the program, and one of the things is literally within 3 weeks, 4 weeks, I mean, you have a different reputation in your company
Mm-hmm.
because people are seeing you show up in different ways. So that's what I believe. It's not about doing the tactics, although the tactics are included. It's really about more than that. And it's about becoming and being the only candidate for that role, for that next role.
Right on. Right on.
Mm.
So let me see what the next best question might be. So could you talk about maybe some influences you pulled on this topic? So as you came together with the program, as you progressed and kind of figured this out, who are the leaders in this field other than yourself that you looked up to or found inspiration from, or are like, I'm going to borrow, steal, utilize that little bit in my work?
Hmm. You know, I'd say it's really, gosh, it's really over the years, and it's more like corporate, like when I've been in companies, like for example, I've developed so there's not a name behind this. I've developed like, what do you do when people don't like your idea? Like, how do you
Mm-hmm.
deal with still being strong and assertive, but not combative? So how do you deal with, or there's conflict with somebody. So how do you
Mm-hmm.
maintain your gravitas without being combative, but you also, so like fight or flight, you don't fight and you don't flee. What's that door number three? So I coach people in that, and that's, I've seen all the models within corporations. I've been through it all,
Mm-hmm.
and so I've pulled the best of the best. So there's not really a name behind that. So a lot of my stuff is from over the years. um like, who do I listen to? Gosh, I listen to Brendan Burchard.
Mm-hmm.
I love, his emphasis on growth. It's like the old saying, progress, not perfection. And I come from a
Mm-hmm.
perfectionist background, and it's got to be perfect. And it's like it's such a bust. Nothing is perfect, and so that's been a learning process for me along the way, and for some of my clients. So yeah, so I'll listen to Brendan, and then I'll read. Like, when I think about a lot of coaching that I do with people is really around communication and messaging, and so favorite, Made to Stick with Chip and Dan Heath. Love that.
Mm-hmm.
There's so much in that. I'm actually looking over at my bookshelf here, um, in my home office. Brain Rules by Dr. John Medina. Just how the brain works in terms of, and these have to do with creating, messaging, how to get it out there. So those are some of the names that I follow. I love listening to Ed Milet. Got
Mm,
such a great podcast, and all the people he has on, I typically will learn something with his questions. So those are just maybe some of the people.
right on. Yeah, I mean, Brendan seems to come up nearly every time. So, um,
Yeah, yeah, he's got a lot
and
of lot of wisdom, isn't he?
yeah,
Yeah,
a lot of good, inspiring things too.
yeah,
And of course, he's the guy who made the high performance coaching curriculum we both follow.
yeah.
Or I'm not sure if you do that in your programs. I follow. I can vouch for that
Yeah,
strongly.
yep, I have I got my own program. I know that the certified high performance coaching is fantastic. I have had my own thing for, coming out of the corporate world for a long time that I use now for people with work or for personal. So,
Right on.
yeah.
Super, super cool. So, um, next best question. All right, this is I've been asking this one. It's been interesting. Is there something you could share on the podcast that you haven't shared on stage or on another interview or podcast or any of your content? So just something new that people don't know.
I'm thinking, Sean, I think you might have stumped me here.
That means it's working. Yes.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I think I'm putting it all out there. Um, yeah, let me run that in the back of my mind, and if something
hmm
comes up. And Sean, you're just talking about something from like anything I haven't shared or something new I have going on that I haven't shared.
Just anything. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
But hopefully it relates to, living your meaningful revolution of the true self or the true you
Mm,
revolution. But it could be anything related to your products or war stories from figuring out this process to help people or anything like that.
yeah, yeah. Well, I mean, I guess I would say with the true you thing, it's really I found it insidious because it's not like I mean, I like from a larger perspective, I am an extrovert and I'm a communicator. I always have been. And so
Mm-hmm.
look at the field I'm in. I help people learn how to communicate better as part of what I do. And and I'm a speaker. It's like, so I mean, speaking of stumbling into our careers, I fell into this career in like corporate learning and development, which I'm now, I'm not inside anymore. I'm this external consultant, but
Mm-hmm.
and coach. But I mean, I fell into that when I was 22. I mean, right out of school. So I mean, I got on a really right path for who I am. So you could say, oh, well, she was being her true self. So but I wasn't. Underneath, I was
Mm-hmm.
judgmental of myself. Underneath, I was like I was I was kind of hiding my light, so to speak. I was,
Mm-hmm.
bringing my serious professional self to my serious professional role, and my naturally expressive self just kind of went away, and a lot of the joy that I could have been experiencing, a lot of the inner freedom I could have been experiencing, I wasn't, because I really wasn't listening to that wise self, to that true self. I was just kind of following those marching orders that starter self learned. So I would say,
Mm-hmm.
what I would say to people is just to beware of that.
Mm-hmm.
Like if you're wondering, am I following my starter self? Am I listening to my true self? I mean, just get quiet sometime. If you meditate, ask that question in your meditation. See if you can listen for that, again, that higher self, that higher voice. And if you've got a higher power that you talk with, I mean, ask your higher power for help in this.
Mm-hmm.
If you've been here's a quick way to know, are you accessing your true self, is when you're in a really tense situation, and it's typically a situation where you would say something to someone you wish you hadn't said, or you'd kind of fly off the handle, or you'd get super tense. If you found yourself being able to stop yourself and you didn't say that thing, or pause and go, you know what, I don't need to get so wound up about this, you probably just touched your true self, because that's your wiser voice saying, you know what, don't say that thing. Not a good moment for that. Or, you know what, you don't need to go on this, on this inner journey of tension here. You can just stop right now, and because there's nothing you can do about this, maybe, or let it go. Or if you're going to do something about it, you got to have a calmer brain to do it. You probably touched your true self. So that's a way to think about it and to access it in regular life. But I would say, hey, get out, take a walk, get out in nature. Close your eyes, not maybe when you're walking, but at some point, and just get quiet and listen for it. Don't necessarily think, oh, because I'm sort of following what I seems like the right career for me, like I did, I must be listening to because I really wasn't, mostly touching base with my true self.
Right. Excuse me. I love that, because part of what I've found this podcast as I'm stumbling through this process of making the best podcast I possibly can, one of the ideas I think that has come up has been to create a life that you've designed, and not live a life that's been designed for you. And I think it's a different way to say exactly what you're saying. You can't be your authentic self if you're following a path that your parents laid for you, your job laid for you, society laid for you, culture laid for you. Yeah. Friends, family, teachers, all those types of things can really... There's some comfort in knowing the direction, but the work is to figure out which paths you want to be on in life. So, I definitely hear that in your story, and I want to recognize that in your story of, there's a different way, there's a better way, there's something a little bit more my truth that I can show up as. So that's pretty amazing.
Yeah.
So if we were to maybe speak in general, if somebody was trying to level up their career in an organization or as a business owner, and they're just getting started in that process, what would be like 2 or 3 starting strategies, starting habits, starting things that could help get them in the game as they push to move forward in that area of their life?
It's great. Yeah, Sean, thanks for that. I like, right off the bat, I mentioned reputation earlier. We typically think about our reputation at work, and your reputation is everything. I mean, it's the thing that is or isn't going to propel you forward. If you have the right kind of reputation, now you're in the running. So that's just sort of the starting thing, and absolutely essential. So for most of us, we think about our reputation. We think, oh, I probably have a pretty good reputation. I show up and I'm doing the best job I can, etc. But we don't think about, I wonder what it really is, though, because we can't know. I mean, I know what I think, inside my head and what I'm trying to do, but my intentions and, what's inside here isn't necessarily what's going on with other people's thoughts of me. So seriously, number one, I would step forward and ask someone I trust in my professional sphere. I would ask a couple of people for candid feedback on my reputation. And I would tell them why I'm asking. You can't just ask, what do you think my reputation is? Because they're going to think, are you going to hold it against me if I should I lie here? Is this safe? So you're going to tell them, hey, I really want to be doing the best I possibly can. And I think I'm doing well. And I think I'm in good standing here, but I don't know. I mean, I want to know what it looks like from the outside. So just see if there's a couple of people who would be willing to be candid with you and give you the good and give you the maybe not so good. And that in and of itself could just give you some marching orders on some things that you could work on and some things that you can iron out. And that, for some people, that's going to be the thing. And all of a sudden they start showing up a little bit differently, and people start perceiving them a little bit differently, and their reputation gets better. And they go on a list, and I mean the good list of their bosses. So that's a number one thing that I would say. A number two thing is it's amazing how people, again, I mean, part of this could be linked to reputation, but it's really on your interaction skills. And for me, working with groups for so long, it's fascinating when you're with a group and I'm maybe facilitating a discussion and I'm asking a question. There's somebody who speaks up all the time, and there's somebody who never speaks up. And so I would highly recommend that you really take a hard look at your interacting skills, because if you're either one of those extremes, if you're the person who speaks up all the time, guess what? There are people out there who think you speak up too much. That it's just the thing, because other people might be processors, so they just needed a couple of more seconds to think before they spoke up. But because you're not, because you're a quick processor, you just you speak up first, and so they don't. So if you have found yourself in that position a lot, I would say you start to give it another couple of beats so that you demonstrate to people that you're collaborative and not dominant. You don't have a desire to be dominant. It's just your communication style versus theirs. And conversely, the other person who is a slow processor, then I'm going to say you got to think of some ways as you start going to your meetings where you can speak up more quickly. So that might be some extra preparation ahead of time, and finding out maybe what the main topics are going to be, and then formulating your thoughts on those and maybe a couple of points you want to make before you get there. So just interaction is people want to promote people who interact well with others. It's just besides I mean, I haven't hit the other piece. I mean, the technical piece. So number one, what's your reputation? Number two, what's your interaction? And number three, what's your technical prowess? And that's sort of table stakes, which is why I didn't even mention it. But that the idea is, be sure you're good at your job. Be sure you're doing your job well, that you're technically executing on whatever and by technical, I just mean the aspects of you might be an illustrator, you might be whatever you are. Maybe you're in, something with design, but there's always like, how do we execute on the job? Are you executing on the job well? Are you doing it timely? Are you doing it quality? So be sure that those things are good and are solid. So those would be, how am I doing on my job in general? What's my reputation, and what's my interaction like?
Gotcha. Yeah, super solid. Sometimes it seems super common sense, but as we know from our mentor Brendan Bouchard, common sense isn't always common practice. Yeah, we know that. I have one more kind of question about this in relation to how do you, because I feel like we're having two different conversations as I'm like processing as we go of this really great work of how do you advance in career or advance in life. It could be very interchangeable in that, and living your authentic self. Like, how can I, as Sean, engage in a reputation, or think about how I'm interacting, and really do a good job at my job and do it authentically? I think that might be the tie to kind of merge those two conversations that we've kind of been having. Yeah. Do you have any thoughts on, like, how do you find your authentic self? That's the sustainable authentic self, not just your, I don't know, I'm trying to find the words, just your normal authentic self. I don't know, maybe there's a third level of that sustainable authenticity.
Yeah, it's really right on. I the longer I am on Earth, the more I really believe that just about everything comes down to practice. And so the authentic self, as I mentioned, it's actually associated with, or the true self is associated with some specific parts of the brain, and you want to access those parts of the brain. And I got to go back to meditation. If you're not meditating or praying or whatever it is for you, but I highly recommend that you engage in that, because especially in our world today, I mean, I reflect on this more than our parents or grandparents, who, I mean, the onslaught 24/7, 25/16. I mean, it's just like overload. There's information, there's talk, there's interaction, there's something coming at you, and it's really, really easy, more than ever before, to stay on the surface of life and to stay on the surface of yourself. And so
Mhm.
it takes a choice to turn off the devices, like all of them, and to really give yourself some empty space. And that's scary for a lot of people who have not done that. Who am I when I'm not engaging in all my stuff
Mhm.
that's on my screens? Uh,
Mhm.
but I highly recommend it, because who you are is. Let me cut to the quick. If anyone's listening to this and going, "Oh, I'm kind of scared of that," I have good news for you. It's all good. It's all good. Life is only going to get better as you start giving yourself the chance to access your true self. So what you want your true self available to you as you go throughout your days, and you get in discussions with people, and you get in tight situations and projects, whatever it is. And the more you practice accessing that true self, the more it's going to be available to you. So I really do recommend that you give yourself some quiet time. Lots of great apps for this. You got the
Mhm.
Headspace, you got Calm, you got all these apps out there that are available. But Insight Timer, I really recommend that you do one that's not all talking all the time, but just that gives you a little bit of space. If you want to have a little music in the back or some ocean waves in the back, that's totally fine. But literally, that just gives you a little quiet space. And just be sure that as your chatterbox thoughts are coming in, that you're allowing them, just as any of those apps will teach you. The thoughts drift in and the thoughts can drift out, and just give yourself that open space. I have honestly, Sean, had some of my best brainstorms of new product ideas and just content ideas come out. They just like boom. It's come out of those meditative times, and it's not like I was
Mhm.
thinking about them, because I was actually concentrating on giving myself a break and some open space. And within that space, boom, an idea came. So in Soul of Success, we do it with soul practice. And we do this soul practice thing that we do consistently every day. We do something we call success setting, which we do every day, and it just starts to train the brain to listen to access that true self. Because it's true, it doesn't just happen. You can't say, okay, let me listen to my true self, if you're not in you got to get yourself in the practice of it.
Yeah, totally. And so, yeah, I love that it all comes down to quiet space. I am a huge, huge believer and proponent of slowing down. I mean, I'm introverted, so of course I want the quiet
Yeah.
spaces and a lot more. But like, so I can step in and do things that expend energy or
Yeah.
serve at a higher level. And I think at the end of the day, if you're living in your authentic self, you're able to give more, that which helps your reputation, those interaction skills, and just helps you be better at your job.
Mm.
So, what a great way to wrap up a fantastic interview. So, Mim, I'll have links below in the show notes for you, but what's the best way for people to follow up with you if they'd like after this podcast?
Oh, that's great. Thank you, Sean. Yeah, I mean, just reach out to us at info@soulofsuccess.com. Info@soulofsuccess.com. Would love to answer any questions and talk with you, whoever's interested. And we love supporting people who are looking to improve their lives and improve their careers. And Sean, I know one of the links will be got a hot off the press workshop that's a free on demand workshop for getting those promotions, called "How to Win the Promotion and Accelerate Your Career." So, and I walk you through the process. So happy to, really delighted if that is of help to you. But just reach out to me at any time.
Awesome, awesome. Well, then, thank you
Yeah.
for your energy. Thank you for your presence. Thank
Oh,
you for sharing your wealth of knowledge about living into that true self. and how that's been a through line through a lot of different chapters in your career in corporate and learning. So always fantastic to talk with you, my friend. So thank you so much.
Sean, I love talking with you. Love talking with your audience. So what a privilege to be here. I'm really honored. And let's do it again sometime.
Absolutely, absolutely. So with that, folks, please be sure to, if you love this episode, comment on Apple Podcasts. That really helps us out. Share this with 3 friends, if you would, if you found it helpful. And we'll see you in the next episode of the Meaningful Revolution podcast. I hope you loved this episode of the Meaningful Revolution podcast. And if you did, please share this with 3 of your friends to get the word out, and direct them to Apple Podcasts to subscribe and leave a comment, because that's what really helps us with the show. So you can also direct them to Spotify or Google. So most major podcasting platforms, you can find the Meaningful Revolution podcast. But Apple helps us out the most, so please direct your folks to there if you would. If you would like to start your personal Meaningful Revolution, I have some exciting news. This year, we're starting the Meaningful Revolution Challenge. First one being the first week in January. So sign up in the link below in the show notes here to spend 3 days for free live with me, where we'll go over defining and getting clarity on your personal Meaningful Revolution, that fulfilling transformation, that authentic self to show up in this next year. We'll spend on the second day building your plan so that you know what you need to do to make strides towards that personal Meaningful Revolution. And then thirdly, we'll talk about tips, tricks, and strategies to implement and to commit to your plan next year. So those are the 3 days. We'll have prizes. There'll be a chance to ask questions. There'll be a chance to get some coaching if you need some in your particular situation, to get you in the game, to get you moving forward, to get you into that meaningful revolution, that fulfilling transformation. Also, if you'd like some one-on-one time, there's 2 options also below here where you can sign up for a strategy session. And the free strategy session I'll post on YouTube as part of a new series, full disclosure there. But during that call, you will get you'll fill out an application. It'll help you think about your life in a different way, get you kind of primed for our 1-hour strategy session. It gives me a chance to identify some areas to focus on so that you get the most bang for your buck during that call. We build you a personalized strategy plan going forward with tools and tricks and habits and all that kind of great stuff. And it's all focused and customized to your life. So definitely click on that. If you're like, hey, I don't want this on YouTube, I'd like it a little bit private, it's $200 for that 1-hour call. Please make sure you sign up today, because I only have so many slots each week where I can do these calls, and they fill up quick. So don't miss your chance to get one-on-one coaching, get your strategy plan, your strategy session locked in by clicking on those links below.